And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and I'm really pleased to have in the studio with me Mike Papantonio, America's lawyer, host of Ring of Fire Radio, author of the new book. I'm going to grab a copy here and wave it around. Law and Disorder. It's a novel. Pap, welcome back.
Well, thanks, Thom. Good to be here.
Great to have you with us.
Great studio you have up here.
Thank you. Oh yeah, we're having fun. So tell me about Law and Disorder.
Well, Law and Disorder was written as a way to tell the story about some of the horrible news that's taken place in the country in a way that you can read and be entertained. My goal was to have somebody go to the beach, read a good story, read a good thriller, and then at the same time come away and say, well, I learned something. You know, I came away and I didn't know about this issue about Wall Street. I didn't know about this problem with the pharmaceutical industry, or whatever it may be. And so I think that's what it delivers. I think what it does is it makes it's a great entertaining story, but it certainly makes you walk away and say, you know, I need to know more about that.
Yeah, yeah. This is, I mean, John Grisham back in the day with his early books anyway, did that pretty well, and you've done a brilliant job of that in this, and I'm hoping there's more coming.
There is. There's actually 3 books, all similar. The second one picks up from a character in here. Gina Romano is a wonderful female trial attorney who's gotten caught up in a whistleblower case where people have died, and now she's become a target. And it's but again, it's not just a great story. It's also, you read a chapter and you go, gee whiz, I'd like to know more about that. You know, we're busy. People are just ridiculously busy. They work all day. If they get a chance to look at the headline on the news, that's spectacular. But to take time and actually look any deeper, very difficult. So sometimes you can do both. You can say, wow, just like you talked about, Grisham, in his early books especially, he would raise issues that you wouldn't find, and certainly in corporate media. Corporate media, for example, Thom, would never tell the story, would never tell these kinds of stories. They're all true stories. Everything in here is actually, it actually happened, but we've changed names, we've changed events somewhat to where we can make it into a fiction story. But John Grisham used to be the master of that. He would tell a story and you'd say, well, I never knew that's how lawyering worked. I never knew judges actually operated like that. Corporate media cannot tell the stories, not just like the ones here, but the stories we talk about every day.
Yeah, we're talking about Mike Papantonio's new book, Law and Disorder, a legal thriller. A novel for people who, you know, if you're looking for good fiction, it's a great book. Pap, there's a lot going on in the world today. I'm curious that right now one of the big stories is how Aetna, apparently it's Aetna, you know, they wanted to have this merger, and they said they've got an internal document now that's been leaked.
As we walk away.
If we don't get the merger, if the Obama administration fights us on this merger, then we're going to screw Obamacare. And it looks like they're fixing to do it.
Well, that's what happens when we allow corporations to get so big that they run roughshod over our democratic process. Mm-hmm. I think when FDR, when he really focused on things like antitrust and trying to tame corporations that were out of control, that's one thing that he was confronted with. As you know, FDR got many threats from corporate America. Yeah, is a way of doing.
They tried to do a coup against.
That's right. They hired an ex-military guy and said, "We're going to." That's exactly right. So for this story, though, we haven't. It goes on quite often. It goes on a lot, but we don't know the backstories. We don't know. It's rare we have a document that says, "Look, we don't really care." I mean, it doesn't say this exactly, but if you read, I mean, the intent is. They don't care. They care more about this rush to power, more for this big merger that's going to make them bigger and tougher to deal with than they do actually delivering services for Americans where it comes to their health.
Well, that's because they don't deliver services. They just write checks. I mean, they're really just banksters.
Yeah, they are banksters.
And why we've got this myth of the insurance companies. These insurance companies, they're just banksters. They're skimming our money off the. Oh, it's amazing.
Well, they started, as you know, insurance companies started out as basically as a mob kind of undertaking where. Just gambling, basically. Yeah,
it's a protection racket.
Now what they've done is they've built all the wins in. They've built it to where you really can't lose. Yeah. You know, it's this person tries to write it's like going to a bank when you need money. they're not going to loan you the bank any money. When you got plenty of money, they're going to make the loan. Same thing with insurance.
Yeah, when you're sick, they don't want to pay for it.
Exactly.
When you're not sick, they want to take your money. It's amazing. Anything on the top of your mind, or would you like? I've got a bunch of calls here. We could pick up these calls.
Sure, I love talking. I love you have the smartest callers in the business. I got to tell you,
it's been my experience too. It really has. Alexandra in LaConner, Washington, listening on KBAI. Hey, Alexandra, you're on the air with me and Mike Papantonio.
I'm thrilled. Thank you. Let me start off by saying I'm off topic. I'm calling about SSRIs. Mike Papantonio, I know about you because I heard an ad on the radio when your company was doing a class action lawsuit regarding SSRIs and birth defects. I have a son who falls in that category. He is severely disabled. And very sadly for me, what I've learned in my adult life is a little something about our legal system, which is that in civil court, there's no burden of proof. Anybody can say, I declare under penalty of perjury, and then, if they choose, lie, sign it, and that's good enough in the courts. And so I am not my son's guardian, and there's darn little I can do. I did call your law firm when I first heard about it to get my son in on your class action suit, but it was closing. And so the fact that I probably would not have been successful because of guardianship issues, and that's a whole. I simply talk of guardianship as a dirty little.
It is. It is awful. It's always been awful.
Hey, Alexander, thank you for the call. You want to go off?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, my involvement with SSRI was being asked to maybe try the cases. We didn't bring the class action.
Let's just, for people who don't know what we're talking about, SSRI is a fancy word for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are the Prozac family, this brand new family of antidepressants that replaced the benzo drugs. And it turns out they're apparently far more addictive than the benzo drugs were.
They're not only addictive, they're far more destructive. Yeah. And that's the problem. But our involvement was, what people don't understand about what I do is I actually try the test cases throughout the country, whether it's a Yaz case, which is a drug that killed people, or I could go on Pradaxa, I could go on forever with the company. But what I'm brought in to do is actually try the test cases. Mm-hmm. And so we never really brought the class action, but there are people who did. And unfortunately, it's been such a stacked business. The federal judge that happens to be handling the SSRI, unfortunately, is awful. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, it's just the way she has limited the women's ability to be able to tell their story is just beyond belief. And unfortunately, that's what happens. People don't understand. We put such an emphasis, Thom, on getting a senator elected or a House of Representative elected or president elected, but we miss the fact that all that doesn't mean anything. It means nothing if you have a judiciary that is controlled in a way that they're going to nullify anything that happens.
Which is what Lewis Powell identified in his 1971 memo. He said, we got to take control of the courts.
That's exactly right. And so what conservatives have done, not just conservatives, but I even have a hard time distinguishing conservatives and Democrats anymore. What the Wall Street
corporatists.
It's corporatists is the best way to put it. They're from both parties. Yeah. But what the corporatists have done is appointed judges all over the country. They're just an absolute disaster. Even Obama, you would think, oh, well, he's made some good appointments, but he really hasn't. You know, his appointments have generally come from corporate America.
Yeah. I wonder to what extent that's. Well, I don't know. I don't want to speculate about his motives, but anyhow, let's see here. We got 2 more minutes till the break. Al in St. Paul, Minnesota, listening on AM 950. Al, you're on the air with me and Mike Papantonio.
Hi, Thom. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, sure. You're a great archives man, and I have a favor to ask. Okay. Early in his campaign, his primaries, Trump repeatedly said, American wages are too high. We cannot compete in the world.
Right. He said that in one of the early Republican debates.
Right. Yet last night on his speech, he says he's going to raise American wages. Now, he should be called on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And actually, I think in the last day or two, Hillary Clinton has quoted him as saying, wages are too high. This is just another example, Pap, of how, thank you for the call, how Trump is like all over the place. There doesn't seem to be any core there.
Well, what Trump does is he looks at it is what it is. It's $2 billion worth of free advertising. That's what the number is as of today. And so we know, we've been in this business a long time. A politician understands the more outrageous they can be, the more so he's bouncing all over the place. He's not really playing to any one entity. The problem is the American public simply is unable to keep up with all the slips and slides, and he knows that.
Yeah, and my first hour of this program was just all about what a scam the Republican Party is now. I mean, it's become it's a hustle.
Yeah.
And so now they got this businessman who's got an entire business career littered with people destroyed by his scams and hustles. Yes. He's the perfect Republican. Yeah. He's just the perfect Republican. Mike Papantonio is with us. We'll be taking your calls here for the next 15 minutes, the last part of the show. So please stick around. We'll be right back with you. It's the Thom Hartmann program. 15 minutes before the hour here on Anything Goes Summer. Mike Papantonio in the studio with us. His new book, Law and Disorder, a legal thriller. If you like reading a good novel, pick up a copy. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.